All right, we're back with the death lineup talking Warriors and Valkyries as well. There's some Valkyries news since the last time we recorded. WNBA finals are headed to game 4. The NBA season is upon us. There's a ton of stuff to talk about. Are you ready for the NBA season to begin? Is the first question.
I think you asked this last time we recorded, and I was okay with it taking longer just because I think I mentioned that, now following the WNBA, women's college basketball, and then I've always kind of looked at men's college basketball from a prospect perspective, not necessarily of like a fan of a school perspective, but basketball is year round. So NBA could have waited a little bit. The WNBA finals is still in session, but yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I love the Warriors. So,
Do you
how
have
about you?
time for it though?
No, not at all. Not at all. And as we've mentioned pre-pod, it's been tough to watch these preseason games. They've been happening when I'm like doing something on a Saturday. Like I was on a little ferry to I think it was Marin, and that's when they were playing the Clippers. And so I'm just like watching it on my phone from the ferry when I'm spending time with my girlfriend's family, and so I had to put it
Yeah,
away.
you need to put the phone away
So
in that moment.
um,
See, but
yeah,
here's
no,
your problem. You wanna know what your real problem is? You are a person who doesn't have necessarily cable or satellite or these news services like Hulu Live. So I mean, I'm in the same predicament as you, but all I do is I just throw them on my DVR, and then late at night when everyone is sleeping, I can skip through the game in like an hour, and I've sort of created this process where, once a basket is made, I'll 10-second skip, and then I'm already in action on the play on the other end, and you skip through commercials, you can do it. You are an NBA pass and I guess streaming person, so it makes it a little bit harder for you to be able to catch up like that.
I don't know. I feel like this might be time to reveal that I still use your Hulu. Or
Yeah, but you're not watching the DVR games, are you?
I am. That's how I consume Warriors basketball. I don't watch it live. I only watch it a day later. That's how I've
Okay,
watched
so, but
all 82 for
aren't
the past 2
haven't there
years.
haven't there been moments where I've already deleted the game and it's off the DVR?
I might be using mom's because I
Yeah,
have
I think
have
I
them
think
all.
what you should probably do, yeah, you should use your mom's and you should make sure it records every Warriors game. Because I don't like there will be a rare occasion like opening night. I may check in live for a few minutes, but I'm gonna be mostly watching it, post 9 o'clock or whatever, and try to catch up, as much as I can to the live, but I'll still be behind. But that's part of the process here is because our lives are so much built around trying to multitask and the small screen and this and that. It is, it's different. We don't consume media from like that live television perspective. Though, I still watch 49er games live, but that's because it's once a week and it's like an event. And you kind of can do it that way. But yeah, the NBA season being back, I'm prepared. I don't know if I got through every single Warriors game from front to back last year. I at least got to halftime on every single one, and there's probably like 5 to 10 games that, it was in the fourth quarter, and I was like, "Okay, I already know what happened. I don't need to watch this." But, I did good last year, so I hope to do the same again, but it becomes very taxing to get
Yeah.
through that long season.
It's also tough when, you use our approach of watching games after they happen in the DVR, and then what happens when, we have social media at our fingertips,
Yeah.
and you see everything that happens. Like I love, obviously we wait for the finals, like it's like the pinnacle of sports is playoff, whatever your sport you watch, football, basketball. It's been tough to in the past to try and keep up with the finals because I feel like the finals is like a book. Like I have to watch every single game. It's like skipping chapters. If I watch game 1, miss game 2, but I'm there for game 3, or I miss game 3 and I'm there for game 4. So I try to watch every single one, and then if I'm behind, I can't watch the next one until I watch, and then it just becomes like, well, I know what happened, I know who was good, I know who was bad, and it's like, do I need to watch it? And I don't know. That's that. I was on a streak.
What if it's a terrible finals like last year, though? Did you really want to catch up to that, knowing that Dallas wasn't really in the same league?
I think as a basketball fan and doing like a basketball podcast on like not just a Warriors front, but technically a national front, like I'm
Mhm.
supposed to. But yeah, it's really difficult. And I didn't watch every single game of the finals. I don't even know how many I watched. And
There was only
what was I gonna
5, I
say there?
think.
Yeah. And I think I was on a streak of 3 years of watching all 82, every single Warriors game
Mhm.
until this past season. It got broken by some random Trailblazers game in February. And then the Pelicans game towards the end of the season where it looked like we were on the up, and then that game happened and we got whooped, I think.
Yeah, I was, checking out Warriors World, one of my favorite follows on Twitter, and also one of my favorite places to just buy Warriors merch. Shout out to Warriors World. Just an aside, Ben Cruz, who's been a guest on this show a bunch of times, Ben and I hung out last night, and we were hanging out with our buddy Miles, who we all met kind of through Warriors World and like San Francisco Giants Twitter and stuff. So it was kind of cool because, building community with people through Twitter. So Miles and Ben knew each other from Warriors World. Sheet is his name. He used to throw these Warriors parties. Um, I think I got you like a couple T-shirts or something from these parties back in the day, and that's how we all knew each other. So we were hanging out. It wasn't Warriors related, but we kind of came to that conclusion last night. It's like, oh yeah, it was kind of through like Warriors World and like Giants Twitter and stuff. So, but basically, Warriors World was tweeting out all of the terrible losses last year, all of like the last minute, last shot losses. There was the Jokic one where he shot the half court
Oh, the
shot at the
half court
buzzer.
shot, man.
There
And
was
Kaminga, that's
another.
when it started with the Kaminga beef when he just walks out or he looks like pissed after that game. And then he does the report on him and Steve Kerr, or throws it to Shams or whoever. Like that was the whole start of that. And then he shaved his head, right?
Yes. His head looks terrible right now, by the way.
Oh,
Like he shaved it, but there's still like hints of blonde in it, so it looks really bad. Then there was the Chet Holmgren game right in front
yeah.
of Andrew Wiggins where
There's
he
like
hits
two
that
of them.
jumper. And then there was a Paul George one where all they had to do was defend the three, and
Mm-hmm.
Paul George kind of cooks Clay a little bit into a step back three, and Clay's like nowhere near defending the shot, and then they lose that game. So there were moments like that where I felt, you know, the Warriors were not going to win the title last year. They were not built in that way. But there were like a couple of like coin flip games where had it swung in one direction, they might have been like fifth or sixth in the playoffs versus being in the play-in game. And that I think I'm not the kind of fan that goes, "Oh, if they only won that game, then this happens." No, they lose those games because that's who they are. But if you're looking at an optimistic viewpoint with the change in the changes that they made, maybe you can flip some of those games where you're really tight down the stretch and you give away a game because the defense isn't up to snuff or whatever. And they have added guys like Kyle Anderson, like DeAnthony Melton, who should help you in the fourth quarter. Like if GP is just not playable in the fourth because he can't hit a jumper and they're just like leaving him wide open, then maybe Melton slides into that role and you can't do the same thing with him. So there's some differences that we're going to be looking out for this year that will kind of tell. The season's long, but those are going to be some of the things that I'm looking for is, okay, what are they going to do late and how do they close these games? Because I mean, I think everyone watched the Olympics. Is there a better actual closer in the NBA, than Steph? I mean, he closed out whole countries this year in
Mm-hmm.
the Olympics. So I think that is going to be a big thing. I want to see how he plays off of the summer run that he had. Okay, so last week or last time we recorded, we debuted a little bit of a new format. And I like doing shows with formats just because it kind of keeps me aligned and it keeps us on point. So we have 3 segments on this show. One is going to be the talking points where we talk Warriors and kind of the 3 things that I feel are interesting right now. Then we'll do our Valks Valley segment where we'll talk about their new head coach, a little bit about the WNBA playoffs. Then we'll come back to the end with a little bit more of like an around the league kind of thing. So let's start with our talking points about the Warriors. What is with all of the Moses Moody talk? I feel like this is the same conversation we've been having for 3 years. Everybody who's listened to this show remembers the Moody watch, which we started their rookie season, where we were trying to figure out if Kuminga and Moody were going to get any sort of playing time. And now, based off of this preseason, everyone is just so high on Moody. And my feeling is, like, I feel like that about him all the time, and I'm just not going to buy into it just because he had a good preseason. The way that I look at it, he's still like the 11th guy on the team, and that doesn't tell me that he's going to actually get run. Where do you sit with this newfound interest in Moses Moody?
I mean, I think it's just fans that are kind of fed up with him not getting the opportunity. Him kind of always just being, like you said, the odd man out. And I mean, I remember last year that, the preseason darling for us was Jonathan Kuminga, who was, going off in the preseason. And then I think he was able to get his opportunity about halfway through the season where he became like a pretty staple rotation guy. I wonder if that's in the cards for Moses. I mean, I think what they're asking him to do is probably less than what they asked Kuminga to do, where it's like Moses just be like a 3-and-D guy, like you don't have to do anything else. Whereas JK, get a bucket. But Moses is actually averaging the most points per game, probably the most minutes, but also the most points per game in the preseason for the Warriors. And yeah, I don't like there are lineup combinations where I think that maybe he could start, but I think it relies on other factors, not just him. But I don't think he's going to start. I think Melton's going to start, but I think Moses needs to find a way in this rotation. I think it could be some of those things where it's like one night it's him, one night it's GP, one night it's we need this on ball menace. It's GP. It's like, okay, well, we have too many non-shooters in our rotation right now. It's Moses. Like I think he needs to. I think we should bring back the Moody watch just as in a different scale. It's like we're watching for Kuminga to like take that next leap, and we're watching for Moody to get that playing time.
I mean, look how young these dudes look.
Yeah,
these dudes look young. This is how far we've been going back to watching their minutes. So Anthony Slater wrote about Moody and his really good summer. I guess they sent him home with a list of things to do, one of which is be more decisive and shooting the ball a lot more quickly than he has been. We've talked about his indecisiveness, which not only is it on the shot, but is also on the drive. So they wanted him to make decisions much more quickly, which great. That's the thing that he lacks, really. I mean, that's the one thing that he lacks is he likes to hold the ball and think about it. And by the time he does that, the defense is already caught up to whatever they're trying to do. So he does have to figure it. And Kuminga's the same way. Like they have the same problem, the two of them. So he comes out and he has this great preseason. I wanted to look at what his career numbers look like. If you looked at the trajectory of his career so far, I don't think any of this would surprise you, which is his rookie year, he had the least minutes he's ever played. His second year, he incrementally went up in minutes. And last year was his highest minutes per game, but it went from 11.7 to 13 to 17.5. And thus, his points went from 4.4 to 4.8 to 8.1. So, when he plays, no matter how often he plays for the last 3 years, he's essentially the same guy. His 3-point shooting percentage, 36, 36, and 36 the last 3 years. His
what were the games played in those three?
52 in his rookie year, 63 in his second year, and 66 last year. So everything has sort of incrementally gone up, including the amount of threes he's taken, 2.1, 2.1, and 3.0. His amount of free throws taken, 0.7, 0.8 last year, 1.4. His amount of rebounds, 1.5, 1.7, 3. And then assist, 0.4, 0.8, 0.9. He is essentially the same guy, and his numbers increase based on the minutes that he plays. So can he be impactful or more impactful than he's been in his minutes played? I think that is going to be the test for him, because his numbers show he's productive. He's productive in his short stints. Kerr does not trust him to play big minutes. And so if he's not going to get big minutes, he just has to be a little bit more explosive, a little bit more productive, a little bit more decisive. And maybe he will eventually get those extra minutes. But I'm hopeful that he improved, because he should. Still a young player, has 3 years under his belt. He's learned a lot. He will probably tell you he's a way better player. His numbers don't really tell that in the amount of time that he's had on the court. So I'm a Moody fan. You're a Moody fan. We've been begging for him to get minutes. This is put up or shut up for him, because they got a contract that they're going to be talking about. If the Warriors don't re-up him, then he goes into restricted free agency next year, I believe. So I can't imagine the Warriors are going to pay him anywhere above market based on his 17 minutes a game last year. But at the same time, if he does have a big year, if he does improve, restricted free agency next year probably does not benefit them, because some team may take a shot at him.
Yeah, they should get it done. What's the date? When they do they
I
need
think it's
to
right
make it
before the
happen by?
season starts.
Yeah, I feel like I could see it. Because if he has an awesome year, then restricted free agency is going to get paid more. It would make sense to do it right now, strike it while it's still low. Because I've got to assume he's going to play this year. I've got to assume that everything you said, all those numbers are going to go up again. So yeah.
All right. Second topic. Beginning of the season is Wednesday for the Warriors. They play the Trailblazers. Portland is probably going to be on the short list of worst teams in the NBA. They're in Portland. The Warriors actually start on the road the first 2 games before coming home for the Clippers next Sunday. And then they have a 3-game homestand. When you look at the team out, like, what are you looking for the beginning of the season? Because I think there is a pathway that they can actually start hot, because in game 3, you got the Clippers, and we heard the news today from Shams that Kawhi Leonard is going to be out for an extended period of time to try and figure out, his knee situation. And the Jazz should be a good ball club, but the Warriors should be better than the Jazz this year. And then you got 2 back-to-back games at home versus the Pelicans. Pelicans are going to be good. Maybe you split those. I don't know if you can take advantage of this first 5 games, and instead of go 3-2, actually go 4-1. Like, that would be a nice start to this season to take advantage of the schedule, and probably what they need to kickstart this new version of the team.
Yeah. Who did they play in game 2?
The Jazz.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think.
What if Draymond just wants to be mean to Lauri Markkanen for not wanting to be traded to the Warriors?
We're starting off the year with a suspension for Draymond Green. Yeah, this podcast, for the past year and a half, I've been saying if they don't get a number 2, they're done. But I know we're going to get into it a little later about the outlook of the rest of the league. But you bring up things like there were about 7 or 8 games last year. I know it was a talking point. It's not just you. I saw it on all the Warriors pages where it's like, look at these like last minute, like last second losses that we had. You flip those into a win. Obviously, it's unrealistic to flip all 8, but we're talking about the 4th seed.
Yeah.
And so in a Western Conference that I feel like is confusing right now, where the only team I'm like actually confident in at the top is OKC. Like, the Timberwolves did a weird thing. Denver lost KCP and added Russ. Like Russ hasn't really lifted the ceiling for any team lately.
There's not a
And
lot of belief in the betting odds of the Nuggets.
yeah, it's just
They've
like who else
fallen
is
a little bit.
who, like I still think those teams will be better than the Warriors in the standings, but like who else? Like it's just a weird Western Conference that
Yeah.
that maybe a few coin flips, and they were as win totals say, like they weren't that far behind again last year, even though they were the 10th seed or the 9th seed or whatever they ended up being. Like they weren't that far behind. As the Western Conference, everything was separated by like 5 games. It's really tight as compared to the East.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, taking advantage of a weak schedule like this in the beginning would be really ideal. But if we're running off of any type of theme from last year's Warriors, it's 2-3 or 3-2, right? There's that 4-1's not going to happen. So I'm hoping that, a little bit of addition by subtraction by our good friend Klay Thompson being a Dallas Maverick. Speaking of, we probably need to switch the background of this show.
I thought about it. I was wondering, but I kind of like, I like the idea of Klay still in the background because of those guys. But yeah, you're right. It's just there's who's the third person to throw it. It may just be Steph
Looney or
Draymond.
Kuminga. Looney or Kuminga, right? Like I don't Wiggins final MVP. No, I mean finals. It was great in the finals for us. So
Well, I'm all in on pods, so much so that I changed my fantasy name in your league to AirPods.
oh god, yeah, yeah. But I mean, the vibes seem up right now. I've got to say, even though it's just silly little preseason, like we have Obi in our PlayStation chat saying that the vibes feel like it's 2022. Like they can have that type of start. They're not gonna have no 17 and whatever they were, like the 4 or whatever. But there could be the offense. The offense looks like it's running. It looks like it's going good, and they did add. I'm on the record of saying like these additions are amazing if you had a number 2, but they kind of feel a little meh without it. They're still gonna help. So
the other thing is Draymond's not even really a good number 3. Draymond would be like a great number 5.
yeah, Draymond's not a number. Draymond's like on an impact value scale of like number 3. Because when we talk about 1s, 2s, 3s, we're talking mainly from like offensive output. Draymond's like a 7. But
I mean, it might like the number 2 might be Kuminga or Pods. Like if you think about it, like putting the ball in the basket.
Yeah. I think if Jonathan Kuminga can prove to be a small forward, which I don't think he is, and I think we both probably agree that he isn't, like then I think he's a valid number 2. But until then, like, because I think if he's a number 3, then that means, he's able to. Looking at last year's Warriors, they always wanted at the minimum. They didn't explicitly say this, but just by the lineups they put out, they always wanted 3 ball handlers on the court. So guys who can get the ball, get a rebound, and push it up. So that was Steph, Draymond, and Pods,
CP,
and CP. Of course, yeah. There was more, but just at least 3 of those on the court at the same time, or 2 to 3. I forget what it was. And Kuminga was never viewed as able to do that. If he's able to do that, and then we've seen some of the 3-point shots he's already taken. Some of them are falling, some aren't. But if he's able to couple that, like those 2 skills together, he's a 3. He's a small forward, but it's kind of a lot to change from the game he's proven to be pretty good at so far. Like this really strong drive.
What's funny is when he and Moody were rookies, and they relied on those guys to like defend Luka in the in the Western Conference Finals. At that point, I was like, oh, like Kuminga's defending Luka. Like Kuminga is the future 3, and now here we are 3 years later, and we're like, is he a 3? Is he a 4? The fact
his defense also got worse.
Yeah, it did get worse. I think some of it had to do with him just getting bigger, a little bit bigger. But the fact that they have not figured that out in 3 years, there's a problem with that, right? Like now, some of it is they're trying to win titles, and so maybe the development isn't always the first priority. But the fact that we have the same questions about this team or about those players, since their rookie years is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and another frustrating thing is, and on the consistent conversation with the Warriors is no size in these past few seasons, where Kevon Looney is the tallest player that we have. Now we have Quentin Post, but we'll see how many minutes he plays. But also on top of the size thing, it's felt like a lack of athleticism. And what do those two prospects from 2021 provide? Like just pure like athleticism. Like Kuminga is just a freak of nature. And Moses Moody, although he can't jump as high as everyone else, he's still a really good athlete. He flies up and down the court. So I just, yeah, I'm with you. I don't know how they just haven't like been able to figure it out. And I was actually, believe it or not, some of before me and my friends decide to go to the bars, we do have Warriors conversations, and Moses Moody's lack of playing time before the preseason was a topic of conversation. And it is just frustrating because it feels like Steve's philosophy that he's kind of stood by is like, being able to do the little things sometimes like helps you to stick on the court. So like those times when Anthony Lamb was playing over Moses Moody, the times when last year Lester Quinones and Guy Santos were sometimes getting minutes over Moses Moody, and it was I'll say as a fan, seeing I'm a little biased to Guy Santos, but I felt like Moses wasn't playing as well, playing for Steph. And when I say that, I mean that, doing the off ball screen so he could fly up, getting the ball and knowing that he's coming around the corner so you could swing it right to him. I felt like, some of those guys like Guy Santos, Lester Quinones, Anthony Lamb, although frustrating to watch, understood that aspect. They understood that to stay on the court, we just need to hustle, be high energy guys, and get the damn ball to Steph. And I feel like Moses wasn't as good as that. And it was refreshing to see some of those guys do that, whereas I felt like Moses couldn't. But I think that philosophy is a little flawed because it's not necessarily like long term. And Moses Moody is kind of here for the long run, and therefore he's missed so many developmental opportunities because of that. And yeah, I hope that this year there's some type of consistency because it is there's another point that was brought up is like when they've needed when the game has been on the line, when their season has been on the line, for some reason, Moses Moody finds a way into the lineup. In the Western Conference Finals in 2022 against Dallas, they go ahead and win that series. The following year, when they play the Lakers in the second round, Moses Moody finds a way into that rotation. And then even against the Kings last season in the play-in game, like Moses Moody finding his way into a weird rotation spot that he never really played because he's just good when it matters. And
yeah,
if that's going to be, if you're going to, I think it's pathetic if you keep doing that, and also don't maximize him in the regular season. I think that's ridiculous, but I'm hoping that stops this season. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give you a list of all of the teams in the Western Conference with the odds from, we'll use BetMGM. And then, so I'll give you like the top 12, and then you tell me in that top 12 where you expect the Warriors. All right. In the West, BetGM has the Thunder with the best odds in the West to win these are all based on winning the title. Then after the Thunder are the Nuggets, then the Mavericks, and the Timberwolves. Mavericks and the Timberwolves have the same odds at plus 1,200. The Suns are quite a distance in the odds after the Timberwolves. So that is, they are 5th. The Grizzlies are 6th. The Lakers are 7th. The Warriors are 8. The Pelicans are 9. Way down, the Sacramento Kings are 10. The Clippers are even further down, 11. The Rockets and the Spurs are tied for 12th. So those are the top 12 teams based on championship odds in the Western Conference, according to BetMGM. They have the Warriors right at the lower quarter of that. Where do you think, is that right? Are they right behind the Lakers and ahead of the Pelicans? Is there some sliding, the sliding Suns possibly, or you sneak up ahead of the Suns? Where do you put them in the West?
I think if it's tough because I think there's a tier system almost where the Warriors are in the same tier as Phoenix and the Lakers. I think those three teams could finish in any sort of order, and I wouldn't necessarily bat ahead. I think Memphis is a weird one that you could tell me they finished second in the West. You could tell me that they missed the playoffs altogether, and I think I'd believe it. Just they, with all the guys coming back, see if it works or not. But no, I think I kind of agree with BetMGM here, and I mean, but I think there is a world where the Warriors finish sixth. I think it's a very optimistic world, but albeit it's still a world. So, what do you think?
It's kind of crazy that KD, LeBron, and Steph are just right in the middle fighting for like the sixth spot.
I think. I mean, I feel like we like. I mean, out of everyone's offseason, the Lakers didn't do literally anything besides draft Bronny, but the Suns feels like they kind of addressed some needs in the point guard thing by getting Tyus Jones, who I think you like, and then they got some rookies as well. But
I like him based on the idea that he always played good against the Warriors.
Yeah, and Melton played good against the Warriors too, and here he is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the Warriors did the most out of all of them, but yeah, so I could be convinced, either way. Especially with I just hope. Wouldn't shock me if Steph starts off the season as in like, oh wow, is he top 5 in MVP? Sorry, you go for it.
I think the team, the Dallas Mavericks, intrigue me. They were not the favorite to get to the finals last year. They were not the favorite to get to the Western Conference Finals in 2022. So there's a little bit of Luka and the strategy in which they play where they can beat teams that might be a little bit better than them. Is it possible that this Clay move is not great for them? Now, I know I saw the preseason stats. The preseason stats are really bad for Clay.
Yeah.
But I'm watching, these end of game series, these end of game things, and Clay's on the court, and I know defensively there's a deficiency there when he has to get out on the perimeter. And I just wonder if that was the right move for Dallas. Because I think when I thought about it, I was like, okay, Clay's just gonna sit in the corner and maybe they leak off of him and Luka finds him. And then last time I told you, I was like, I'm not sure that he's gonna be happy doing that. Like can he be Ray Allen in Miami? Or is he going to get bored and get frustrated and know that he's not going to get as many opportunities, in the same way that he did with the Warriors? So that is intriguing to me. I think if there's a team that can fall out of that upper top 4, I think it is Dallas. But also that, there is a ceiling for Clay if you get the right version of him, because some of his maybe the negativity around him could just be attitude and, rah-rah or lack of rah-rah or whatever. The mental thing that a lot of the Warriors talked about last year. Minnesota is also intriguing, but I think what offsets the possibility that Julius Randle may not be great for them is just, I think Anthony Edwards is probably going to even raise his game another level. So that will be really fun to see. I think of all the teams that I'm rooting for, like just as an NBA fan, to make that leap, that is probably the team, just because he is so good. But at the same time, he's kind of immature, and so I don't know if he's necessarily ready for that. And now a lot of it I'm basing on this NBA Starting 5 series that Netflix is doing, where I'm just going like, oh yeah, this dude's like a kid. I forget, you see this man child on the basketball court, and then you also see the same guy who wants to play video games while his family is waiting for him for Thanksgiving dinner. And so it's like, oh yeah, he's a young dude. But those are the two teams that
2?
I think so.
That's like 3 years younger than me. It's crazy, but yeah, go.
But so those two teams could definitely fall backwards a bit just by the changes, but those changes could be good for them and they may take the leap. Maybe they even leap Denver. OKC definitely has the most talent. They don't have that sort of I need to get mine mentality yet. I don't see that from their players. Now that may come as these guys age into free agency, because when you make that rookie when you make that rookie money and you fit in the cap very well, you're playing team basketball and you're winning. But when it comes closer to your actual free agency and your numbers are like 12 points per game, you're like, oh man, I could probably put 20 up a game in this league. That's going to be something that they're going to have to figure out. But they have the most talent. They have the most young talent in the league. And that's going to be they could literally boat race the Western Conference. I think a lot of people think that that's going to happen. So that'll be fun to watch. But yeah, it's like KD, LeBron, and Steph all in that middle area again. And I think it's just
Only
going
they
to be
teamed up.
Yeah, I know. I think it's going to be dependent on injury health, which we cannot predict today. And how these bench pieces, these additions to what we think were holes on their team, figure out. Like the Lakers, if the Lakers get any sort of injury issues with LeBron or AD, that's going to be tough for them. They could fall out completely. Like they could even miss the playoffs if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, but then you could say that for like any team, right? You could say that if we have injury
Well, but they're
issues
so dependent on two players. Like who's their third best player? Is it Austin Reeves?
Austin or D'Lo. But I mean, it wasn't about that. My point is though, like if Steph gets hurt, we're screwed. Like absolutely screwed. Right?
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like you could say that
but the problem with the Lakers is that the injury history from someone like Anthony Davis is very predictable, and they didn't create any safety valve for that. So look, they got two of the best players in the league, and so they're going to go after it and hope that everyone else fits. But all right, so I'm gonna say that I lean 6 for the Warriors instead of 8, but
I think that's like
right
the
around that
pretty.
spot.
I think 5th is probably like the highest you can realistically like convince yourself for them to be just like if you're like a realistic, and that's already on the like the super optimistic end in my opinion. Man, I mean they like anything's possible, right? Like you said, we don't know with injuries and stuff, but
According to
just
KG,
based on
anything is possible.
yeah, just based on what we saw last year, based on what they did in the offseason, like based on how they've been seeding in these past 2 seasons, I feel like 5 is like the highest you can go without being like too much of a homer. But I'm probably gonna go with like a strong 6 or a 7 as well. Like it's not like your typical 6 or 7. Like what the Mavericks were the 5th seed and made it to the finals.
Yeah,
Or were they like it was
the West is going to be all jumbled again, just like it was last year, and it might be even worse because the Grizzlies are back. Pelicans need to make a leap, so could be even worse.
Yeah,
Zion playing center.
Yeah, where were the Pelicans slotted? Did you say them in that?
They were right after the Warriors.
Got it. Because I think the Clippers could fall out of the playoffs entirely. I know a James Harden led team is still a pretty high floor team. I feel like it'd be hard, even though I don't think they'll be high in the seeding,
Unless he gets super frustrated and wants out,
which is very James Harden like.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we'll have to see. Because I think it wouldn't shock me if the Spurs made the playoffs, like just an insane Wembanyama year 2, and they just weren't expecting to make the playoffs. And
CP3.
CP running the show, like it wouldn't shock me. And then I feel like the Rockets are supposed to be due, but we'll see. I feel
By the way, are we going to go back to hating the way that CP plays basketball again? Like when he stops in front of the Warriors to draw foul and stuff? Because we kind of had to be okay with that last year, but
yeah, I'm rooting for him unless he's playing the Warriors. If he starts doing that stuff against the Warriors again, yeah, it's back to FCP. But like, I'll be rooting for him, against other teams.
All right, let's move on to talk about some Valkyries.
Valks Valley. Home run.
All right. Natalie Nakase. She is the new head coach of the Golden State Valkyries. She is the first Asian American head coach in WNBA history. She's also the first Asian American coach to be on a championship winning team with the Las Vegas Aces 2 years prior, the 2 years prior. I was listening to the Athletic WNBA podcast, and this was before she got hired, and they were talking about the Aces. It was an Aces specific segment and how tough it's going to be because they tried to three-peat and they had a rough get-go, and they got kicked out by New York and all the things. Becky Hammond was just like, we can't bring back the same crew and this, and then they mentioned there's a possibility that Natalie Nakase will get picked up and be a head coach of somebody's team. And that's exactly what happened. I was joking with the Kirk Lacob stuff last time, and we were joking about the Tara Vanderveer stuff. And then like literally like the day or two after, that's when they announced that she was the head coach. Did you know anything about her before they announced her as the head coach?
Not at all. I'm not in the trenches like that in the WNBA yet. Like where I start knowing like who the assistant coaches are. I'm still I'm still trying to figure out who all the head coaches are. I probably know like half of her, a little over half. So no, I did not know who she was. But looking at her resume, previously Los Angeles Clippers, you mentioned it, a UCLA walk-on from Irvine. I think she was a UCI transfer to UCLA and then walked on, and then is a Los Angeles Clippers assistant coach during the Lob City era, and I think and then the Aces head assistant head coach as well.
Yeah, so she played at UCLA and then professionally in the NWBL. Then she went to Germany to play overseas. And I think she hurt her knee a couple different times before she just retired. And she joined the Clippers as an intern in 2012. Her introductory press conference, I watched it. It's funny because, you see a lot of these NBA coaches, they've coached so many different places elsewhere. So you kind of know the pattern of how they're going to say what they're going to say. And she was not patterned at all. This is her first head coaching job. So she was just like, Joe Lacob said, we got to win the title in 5 years. Like, that's our goal. Like, and so it's almost like you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself here, but at the same time, you had to enjoy the personality and the fieriness of her personality. Yeah, so that whole thing was kind of fun to just watch, because if this was like a Warriors press conference, you could predict what the answers are going to be to the questions, right? This very like Steve Kerr, unless he's talking about politics, he's not going to surprise you with anything. So it was really nice to see her be so competitive and
yeah, Steve's almost like a politician when he's talking on the mic, like Steph as well. And it's like I'm not as versed in football, but it feels like Dan Campbell from the Lions like represents like kind of like a just say what comes to mind.
Yeah,
and those are fun to watch.
Now, Oema was talking about Natalie, and she said, one of the things that she really likes about her, because the goals that they set out in hiring a head coach was being really purpose driven. Now that's kind of like, this type of language that, we hear all that in corporate speak and stuff. But she said, that's what they liked about her, was she was extremely driven. And then she talked about creating a winning culture. And she was even like, yeah, like we're going to have this expansion draft. And look, a lot of those players are not going to be on the team when we win a championship. But she was saying,
who said that?
Natalie. She was saying how they're going to have this expansion draft, but by the time they sort of figure out the organization, a lot of those players that they pick will probably not be on the team.
Wow.
But then she said that winners attract winners. And so I took that to mean that a lot of the WNBA players, they look at Joe Lacob and the Warriors culture as a winning culture. And if they can put their best foot forward in Golden State in the WNBA and be like a surprising team early on, that culture will be established with the Valkyries. And she believes that will attract really good players, because in the WNBA, the women, they just want to win. It's not like, it's not like the salaries are that widely different based on where you go and play or whatever. So, hopefully that will change as we get further into this. But that's, I thought that was interesting. It's like, if we prove that we can win early, people know what Joe Lacob did with the Warriors, and you see how the Warriors won 3 titles, and that's going to attract good players. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I also think Joe's checkbook is going to attract winners as well as his just like the culture of the Warriors in the sense of, the Chicago Sky, they still like practice in like a high school gym. Like there's amenities that the Golden State Valkyries are going to have day one that a lot of other WNBA franchises don't have. They're already going to be playing in the best arena in the WNBA on day one. I think the other only competitive one, like I'm trying to think of who else plays in an NBA arena. The Liberty play in Barclays. They don't play in Madison Square Garden. The Sparks do play in Crypto. So it's just, I think I also think the idea of like trying to like cement yourself in a new franchise's history is going to be appealing as well, especially it being the Bay Area, being San Francisco. But no, I'm really excited for her. It seems like, I think the common theme here has been, Ohema. I think her last name's pronounced Nianin or Nyanin. I don't have it down 100% yet, but she's a hire from the New York Liberty. She was an assistant GM to the GM, and she gets hired as our GM. The Liberty are currently in the finals. They were in the finals last year. They made home run acquisitions last year in Brianna Stewart. So, they are winners. And then we poached her from the Liberty and to our team, to be our general manager. And then Natalie Nakase from the Las Vegas Aces, who were looking to three-peat. They were back-to-back champions, and we got her from Las Vegas. So just two important positions filled by two people who were, one step away from being the head coach, from being the general manager on their very successful franchises. So I do like that formula. In order to be the best, take from the best. So I hope that I'm pretty confident on at least the long-term success. I do want to ask you something. You've been a Bay Area sports fan for a long time. The Giants were successful in your since you've been alive, right? They've been like a pretty, I know Barry Bonds never won a World Series, but they're
when I was young, they were not good. Then they got competitive. They were in the World Series in 89 and 02, but not until 2010 were they what I would call like a championship level franchise. So it took a while.
Okay. And then the Niners, you got to experience a lot of
That
titles.
was, yeah, they were the best team in the league when I was growing up.
And then the Warriors took forever. You had the TMC stuff. You had We Believe.
They were the worst. They were the worst franchise in the Bay Area for sure.
Yeah. So how do you feel like about, the Valkyries? Would you want them to, kind of, what do they call I'm forgetting the term, but just essentially like if every top free agent becomes available, we get it. We're the favorite for the championship. We win it. Like would you want to see that, or would you want to see like, build from the draft, not build from the, it kind of feels like a built, not bought. Do you care as a sports fan? Do you think like, oh, because I watched so many terrible Warriors years, I know what it's like to not be able to attract free agents, so we should just get them day one and try to win as many championships because, the built over bought feels better, but it's not guaranteed, So it's
got to be a mix of both. You got to be now. We'll learn a lot about how the WNBA salary cap works, but you see it in the NBA where a lot of times if you can get players on their rookie deals and they're really, really beneficial and they're really good, you can add some higher dollar players because your best player is making, a low amount. Like it's why when Steph signed that first free agent contract, which was really low, the Warriors were able to sign free agents like Andre Iguodala, like Kevin Durant, due in part because Steph was making such a small amount of money. So it kind of works. You kind of have to do it in both ways. They kind of work together, actually. If you like OKC, right? Like OKC, they probably have their pick of the litter of anybody who is available because they have so much young talent and they have so many picks and they have the space because who's the highest paid player on that team? SGA, I guess.
Hartenstein, maybe. Oh yeah, SGA, and then Isaiah Hartenstein, who they just
so
signed.
It's not like they have two guys taking up 75% of their cap or whatever. So
they're gonna run into that very soon.
Yeah, I think it works in tandem, and I would love to see them make a big splash and bring over a name right away. Like, that would be awesome because then it works. It's going to work in two ways. It's going to work on the court because you need a top player who's going to handle the other team's best player. And then at the same time, you need someone that you can market. So who's going to be on the posters and on the billboards? You could put Natalie on there in the beginning. Nobody really knows who she is, but you know, very very cool, higher Asian in an area that has a large Asian population. Like we love that. I love that. I love to see the Asian faces in high levels, high positions like that. But it's really about who's going to be on the court. Natalie can't play. So, we'll be talking about this pretty much all year long because we also learned that the Valkyries got the 5th pick in the draft. So we'll be checking out, who's going to be off the board. Well, yeah, Paige is going to be off the board. Kiki's going to be off the board. Whomever else. And then we're going to get to 5 and go, okay, that first pick is going to be one of those people that you put on the billboards and that you market the team around. But you're probably going to have to bring in another name as well before you start the season because you can't expect a rookie to be your best player. I mean, unless you're Caitlin, then maybe, but there's, very few who are going to be Caitlin, who made the all NBA team, all WNBA team in her first year.
My slightly optimistic guess would be Neko Ogumake from Seattle because she was played in Stanford.
Great.
Bay Area kid.
Great. She's really smart too.
Yeah. That would be, yeah.
She talks like she speaks like a pro. She's very savvy marketing wise. She's really smart. I like her.
I think she's the head of the Players Association for the WNBPA. I think so. Like kind of like CJ McCollum is for the, maybe not a great example there, but
well, CP used to be, right? What didn't he?
Yeah.
All right. How much of the finals have you watched? I watched a lot of the second game, and some of the first game, but I missed all of the third game, which I heard was the best one because I was at an event last night.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Like I mentioned at the top of the podcast, very difficult to watch. Very difficult. I have finally watched. I would tune in real time. I would tune in to like very, oh my god, it's like last couple seconds, like. If I wasn't able to watch, I'll just tune in just because I know I'm going to see it on Twitter. So I might as well tune in anyway. And then I'll go back and watch the game. So I finally was able to watch game 1. Holy crap. That game was insane. Like if I wanted to show someone like why basketball is the best sport in the world, like that might be one of the games that I show them is game 1 of the 2024 WNBA finals. Because it was so dramatic, so back and forth. Okay. Second half of the game 1 of the 2024 WNBA finals because Liberty were kind of boat racing them in the beginning. But yeah, man, like just, oh my God, just the shot and then going to OT and then, is it Courtney Williams?
Mm-hmm.
She hits the shot and then she commits a terrible turnover to Sabrina Ionescu, who grabs it and just puts up a little floater, which gives the Liberty a chance. But yeah, that was just an amazing game. But I didn't get to watch game 2, and then I was about to break my break what I said I wasn't going to do yesterday, because there is a women's sports bar that is opening in San Francisco. It's called Ricky's Bar.
They have one in Portland, I believe. I believe there was like they only show women's sports in this bar in Portland. Very similar idea. Yeah.
I don't know if Ricky's is going to follow like only showing women's sports. I think it's highlighting women's sports. And I bet like, if we have any, if any MAGA listeners catch whiff of this, they're going to be like, well, why isn't there any men's sports bars? Like, shut the hell up, you stupid mother. I'm going to curse at you because we know that the majority of sports bars you've ever been to, it's only showing men's sports. So just because it doesn't say men's sports bar, all sports bars are men's sports bars. Anyways, they're coming out with the Ricky's women's sports bar, and I'm actually wearing a t-shirt because they had a watch party yesterday. They teamed up with the Valkyries, did a watch party yesterday at the Standard Deviant, which is a bar in the Mission. And so it was at 5 p.m. And what sucks about about living in San Francisco but not working in San Francisco is that I have to commute back.
Mhm.
And I went straight to the bar and I parked in the Mission. Terrible to find parking there too. And I go in. I get there like 5:10. Game starts at 5. Packed, no seating.
Standing room
So,
only.
standing room only. So I'm just standing by the two people who started the Ricky's Bar, which is cool because they're the founders, but also it was like, guys, there's no room. I don't know what to do. They're like, oh, maybe here, like go to that table over there. It looks like there's room. Like you try to make some friends. And I was like, sure, I'll do that. And I went and they're like, oh, we're saving it. And I was like, okay, well, that sucks. So I got one beer and then I went over and talked to them a little bit. And I was like, okay, so what's next for you guys? Like, well, I'm assuming you need a space. And they're like, yeah, we're like in talks with something, but we don't want to like get our hopes up too much because it could fall through. And I was like, oh, what neighborhoods are you looking at? They're like, we're looking at the Castro and the Mission. So I'm really, I think it's really cool. The Castro and the Mission is pretty far from where I am, so I might not be able to go as much as I wanted. But I think the idea is really cool. They got to partner with the Valkyries. I got to go. I left 4 minutes in because I was not going to stand for that whole game knowing absolutely nobody and just trying to like network with the two founders when they were clearly occupied doing something else.
What if they're near next door?
Next door is not near the Mission though. I don't think they're off of like Van Ness or
my office.
Yeah, where's your office off of?
I'll tell you what my
is this 6th Street?
We are off of Taylor.
It's Taylor and what though? I forget what the other cross street is. But yeah, anyway, no, they wouldn't be close. You guys, they're more close to the SF Standard than they would be to you, where Tim Kawakami is. But yeah, I think that support it if you can. But I got a T-shirt from them, and it's a really cool T-shirt. So I just wanted to give them a shout out.
Yeah, maybe we'll shout them out, and maybe they'll save us a space next time. All right, so yeah, game 4 is, I think it's Friday. Is it Friday or Saturday? And New York could actually close it out.
I don't think they will.
You don't think so? You think Minnesota's going to hold court?
I think this series is bound to be like one of the greatest final series of all time, and I think it's going to 5. I do think New York's going to win, though.
So yeah, so game 4 will be on Friday, and then if there's a game 5, it will be Sunday at 5:00. So 5:00 our time.
Just think of when the worst time to have these games are, and that's when they're going to be.
Well, at least the Niners game will be over by then.
That's true.
All right, last segment. We'll go through this one quickly because we've been chatting for a while already. All right, around the NBA, why don't we give our championship predictions? Like, this is, who knows? This season is just beginning. I imagine you're going to have the Thunder in the finals. Is it Boston versus Oklahoma City, which would be a great basketball series? I don't know if Oklahoma City is going to draw the casual fans, but that's a fantastic series, just on the court. But who else out of the West? The West is just going to beat each other up, and I feel like the Celtics are just going to chill for like 3/4 of the season.
I know. I mean, like, I think the most fun. Like, I'm praying that Minnesota figures it out because they always match up well against Boston. I mean, you watched the starting 5, the first episode, I think it was. Like, I watched that game live, and I remember texting with my friends, like, "Oh, I think Minnesota's about to pull this one out." It was in the regular season, but
I think Ant was trying to make Tatum cry or whatever. He keeps messing with him, and Tatum just like not paying attention to him.
Yeah, I think Minnesota versus Boston would be the most entertaining. I don't think it's realistic for OKC to go to the finals in this season, but it wouldn't shock me. But just because there's a natural, feels like it's, anything could happen and someone could break the cycle, but it feels like there's a natural progression of these young teams in terms of playoff experience. Like, I remember getting into arguments last year that with people that I was like, I don't think OKC is going to go past round 2. Like, I think winning one round is their ceiling. Just because with these young teams who have never made the playoffs before, that's usually what happens. They usually go out in the first round or they usually go out in the second round. They don't go out much farther than that. The only recent example is the Trae Young's Atlanta Hawks, where they went to the Eastern Conference Finals in their first, season together. But they had a ton of veterans on that team with Trae Young. So I think then following that progression, like I think Western Conference Finals is like their, if there is like a little cursed spirit in the NBA, like that's going to be their ceiling. That's going to be where they end up is the Western Conference Finals. But I guess it wouldn't totally shock me because I just feel like there's so much uncertainty in the West, and the Thunder are the only team I'm certain that are going to be good. Like
Yeah.
there's no doubt in my mind that they're going to be the first and the second seed at worst. So I guess it would be pretty crazy to say like I don't think they're going to make the finals, but I really don't think they're going to make the finals. But I think if they were to make the finals, I hope it's against the Knicks. That would be the fun series because I think Boston would take care of them pretty easily.
Yeah. I mean, the betting odds are Boston and the Thunder. The Boston, very clear favorite to win the title back to back right now on the
It's
betting
going to
odds.
be the easiest back-to-back title ever. But I guess
Okay, so you know
Kevin.
how there's this possibility in the Major League Baseball playoffs with, and this is kind of what the networks are probably hoping for, which is the Yankees versus the Dodgers, the two big markets finally getting together and having this, the most casual eyeballs possible for a World Series. What do you think that version is for the NBA?
Realistic or what?
I'm semi-realistic, like it's, but I guess the only unrealistic part of that would be if you think the Warriors or the Lakers are
Right? That would be
not
from the
even
West. It'd be
competitive.
Warriors or Lakers from the West, and then
Mhm.
New York from the East.
That's what I was
Um,
thinking was Warriors Knicks. I think Warriors Knicks.
Philadelphia might draw more than Boston does. What do you think? I don't know. What do you think?
No, Boston has all those titles, so they have that fan base that is just really so diehard Celtics. I think Philadelphia would draw decently well, but not better than Boston or New York. I think
Well, do you remember?
Warriors Knicks would be the finals. Like if the NBA could pick it, like it was like a wrestling match, I think the Warriors Knicks would be their pick.
I think Lakers Celtics would be number 2 then because you
Lakers
remember. I
Celtics
mean,
might be number one actually, just because of the rivalry. That might actually be number one, and then maybe Warriors
well,
Knicks is number
do you
two.
remember? It was 2020. I mean, it wasn't long ago to remember, but I think it was the 2023 playoffs when it was it was Lakers and Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals and Boston and Miami in the Eastern Conference Finals, and we were like like the NBA, we were like they're probably on their knees like asking for the Lakers and the Celtics to win this because you get that
Yeah,
matchup, but you get
yeah.
Boston, I mean you get Denver and Miami.
Yeah, it was the
That's what
opposite.
you got. It's the opposite. And I feel
Yeah,
like the ratings reflected that, but yeah.
yeah, I think either of those would be good, but that's kind of what it's about in the West is all of your really good teams are not the ones with like the perennial star players. So you would hope that Luka, I think they hoped that Luka, would create that or would become that after last year's finals, but Boston was just too good. And maybe like we were talking about Ant Edwards, maybe he can actually create that in Minnesota. And that might be the toughest matchup, like you said, for the Celtics. So
Yeah.
yeah, but those are strong. Not that we
What's your
need.
prediction?
I'm probably saying I like the Boston Minnesota pick. I don't trust Minnesota. I don't trust the Mavericks. Just by default, I'm saying Oklahoma City, and it's not like, and the way that I'm saying Oklahoma City is I'm using the Warriors 2015 timeline in that, like, usually when I was watching it, it was like, oh, you kind of made the playoffs, then you got to the next round, then you got to the next round, you finally you won it all. And in this case, in 2015, the Warriors made the playoffs in 2013, then took a step backwards in 2014, and then they blitzed everyone in 2015. So I think Oklahoma City could blitz a lot of teams and create a nice, a nice lead in the West. And they have the other thing is they have the depth to sustain some injuries, whereas I'm not
They
sure
do.
if other teams have that depth.
Yeah, they're in
All
great
right.
positioning to do it.
So we'll figure out the next time we chat. Like I said, they play Wednesday night, so Thursday might be a good time to discuss game one of the season, but we'll sort of figure that out as we get back into the groove of this Warriors podcast. So, all right, that is it from here. So for Bry, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace. out.